Here we are. I'm
Here we
here,
are,
and you're here, Lama Surya
all here.
Oh, God. We haven't
Totally
seen
here.
each other in some time. We spent a little time on the phone the other day, but geez, the busy life syndrome is it's tough. But I'm glad we got this opportunity, so welcome.
Thank you, Raghu, and thank you for doing this and being here now with us all. I'm thankful too, not just because it's Thanksgiving. There's a lot to be grateful for.
Yes, absolutely. And
getting together is one of the greatest things of all to be grateful for. For me, getting together is the way home, and gratitude is part of the way home, and getting together, with others, and getting together ourselves, integrating all the parts of ourselves, and getting together is the way home. And awakening together, loving together.
The together. I have been experiencing that in spades lately, because being at different retreats or being with groups of people and seeing the power of that is extraordinary. I mean, it's extraordinary, I have to say.
It's a miracle. It's mysterious. It's a miracle.
Totally.
And I don't even believe in miracles that much, but it's a miracle. It's miraculous. It's like when you see a child being born. What's the big deal? It happens all the time. But when you're there, whether it's your child or not, unbelievable. And if it is your child, it's like the most unbelievable thing in your life.
I'm not going to believe you around the fact of, well, I don't really believe in miracles that much.
I know. I don't know what to say. So it's just flapping my lips.
Yeah. I talk about you. I say
there's a whole Miracle of Love book. There must be a lot of miracles in there about Maharaji.
Yeah. And how about the 16th Karmapa book?
Yeah, he was miraculous.
Is fantastic.
I saw him do a miracle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that. But I tell everybody, the most graced person on the planet I happen to know, his name is Lama Surya. I often say this.
Really?
Seriously, nobody has had the grace to be with so many bodhisattvas, so many gone beyond. Not living in duality, but still maintaining a body. The best way you can put it, I guess, is a siddha.
Yes, well, I'm grateful and fortunate. And I'm like Forrest Gump of the Dharma. Somehow, without knowing it, I was always there.
Yeah.
I'm even here now.
That's great.
Here now. Yeah. It's no small thing.
No, not at all. Not at all. Oh, God. So
and I'm grateful. Turkeys and nut birds and vegetarians and all, vegans and all.
Right. So anyhow, we talked. I've been very hot on a subject, and we've done some talking about it, but it's the way that we're stuck, as Krishnadas calls it, the movie of me. So I've been doing a lot of investigation with different people about. It's funny. Do you know Dan Siegel?
Sure.
Yeah.
He's wonderful.
I only met him
thinker
the other day for the first time. Yeah,
writer.
Wonderful and real heart.
Scientist, with heart and smart.
Yep, exactly. And so he has a book called Presence, and it's wonderful. And at the end, I'm reading he goes, yeah, what we need to do is get from me to we. In fact, I have a term, he calls it mui.
That's funny.
It's so good.
I have a whole book about that, but I didn't think of the mui.
Yeah.
MWE.
Yeah, right. Isn't that great? But
it's hard to get from me to we, since, how does that affect me? What about me? It seems to be like our basic mantra.
Yeah, and no matter what slogans you can put out there, I call it spiritual slogans or quotes, and a lot of them are great. It's very, very difficult. The actual in motion on the ground, things that we can do. I mean, the patterns are so difficult. So that's when I thought, I got to talk to Suryadas, because we talked about one thing that some time back, and you said it's a matter of developing our interior self. And I think if you talk about the big antidote in the sky for the movie of me, it is nothing more or less than that. But yet, you talk about it a little bit, though.
Well, Probably I'm thinking about the lack of interiority today and the extreme, not really extroversion, but materialism and turning outward for what we think we want and need and stimulus or satisfaction on many levels. So the interior self, and whether, not to parse words, whether Buddhism says there's no self or not, the interior, polishing the pearl, as the Sufis call it, it's the better angels of our true nature. That's all, by whatever words you use. And as my father would say, of course, I hope you'll be a doctor and help people, but really the most important thing for a Jewish man is to be a mensch. So I didn't entirely subscribe or get Judaism or God when I was a teenager and getting bar mitzvahed and going through the motions of the synagogue and all that. But my father was a mensch, and, there were some menschs around, and I think becoming a mensch is very important, and that's kind of polishing the pearl or cultivating the interior self. And a mensch doesn't just mean a real man; it means a real person,
solid, a solid person,
grounded. Authentic.
Yeah,
you can still make mistakes, but they're authentic mistakes. You did your best. You made a mistake. You learn from it. So nobody's perfect, but God, if you want to put it that way. So polishing the pearl. One of my friends, a learned rabbi or former rabbi, calls it the unique self. It doesn't mean that we're not connected or similar. It just means that it's like the one is unique. And then there's the many, that's all of us and the 100,000 million things. But the unique self, it's the unique, there's no otherness in that state. That's the point, whether you call it non-duality or oneness or just inexpressible, ineffable.
Yeah. Ineffable.
And that's the inner self, higher self, true being, our Buddha nature, to talk Buddhist jargon, the Godhead, the inner light, which is everywhere, not just in me or you, but in everyone and everything.
Yeah.
And that is like the unique self. That's in the one thing that's in everyone and everything. If you're really secular, if you're really scientific, you might call it something like the principle, the life force. Taoism calls it the Tao. That's like the power or the force.
Yeah.
It's the life force.
We just did.
Star Wars calls it the Force.
Yeah.
With a capital F. Align yourself with the Force, and it's all you. It's all yours, and pay it forward.
Yeah, we just did a retreat. We do these Ram Dass immersion retreats in Ojai earlier this month, and so Ram Dass, had done these talks at Naropa, when Trumpa opened, and they're pretty great talks around the Gita. And in this one, it was how to the cultivation of Brahman. So, which is just another word for everything all the different ones you just described, right? But
right.
I liked it because it didn't have any baggage somehow. It's archaic in a certain way, but it was beautiful.
It is beautiful. Brahma is beautiful, and that's why, as I have said before, probably even on your podcast, Raghu, or mine, it's hard to tell who's who's on first. Yeah. As Abbott Costello wonderfully said, and it's worth listening to on YouTube. Brahma, Guru, and Atma are one. That's what it says in the ancient scriptures. Yeah. God, teacher, and the yogi or the practitioner or the seeker are one. So that's awesome. And Brahma is the formless, pervading, and transcendent, yet over everything, yet immanent in all things.
Yeah.
And Guru is the door to that. And the Jivatma, or our own unique self, is part of that. Like a wave in the sea. It's not separate from the sea, but you can discern the many different hundreds of millions of waves.
I want to take this, run it back to the ground, on the ground reality. We're back to, here we are, we wake up, and the star of the movie, producer, director, and we're right there, and we got an agenda. And so we're talking about the steps one would take to even open to moving interior, which to me right away, and this is what we talk about, obviously, in the simple term of mindfulness these days, which has got so many different, it's turning into guru or God.
Yeah.
It's just
another commodity, like
another
compassionate
commodity.
conservatism of ruined compassion word.
Yeah, right, exactly. But the reality is, how do we start to even get on? Because I think you got to get really honest with yourself.
That's a great question. Well, getting honest is one of the first things. And turning your heart towards the truth. Turning your mind and heart inward means towards reality, not just narcissism or inside yourself. And then you see, what do you really want, or why? What motivation, level of motivation and intention and integrity and character? Not just, should I close my eyes and meditate? When you first asked, what would be like an on-the-ground first steps, I was thinking, well, it's easy to say, close your eyes and take a breath. Not bad. It's easy to say a prayer that you like. Not everybody likes prayers, but many people do have a prayer they like. It's easy to say things like that. Or touch the earth, look at the sky, do a good deed. But I'll go back to what I said first. I think it's about really looking into our motivation and intention and what are we looking for and need. And that's like turning the heart mind towards the truth, towards reality, and away from not just lying and outer deviousness, but towards authenticity, towards truth-telling, towards integrity, towards being yourself, towards naturalness rather than standing on tiptoe, looking down on others, thinking you're higher, which is just pride and exhausting, or any other kind of ego strategy to put ego ahead.
Yeah. Well, what we're doing in this, we're doing a retreat next week in Maui with Ram Dass, that we do our winter thing, as you know, and Krishna Das. And
you're going tomorrow, aren't you?
Yeah.
Mirabai told me she's going tomorrow, Jack Cornfield, and a whole bunch of
whole gang,
bodhisattvas.
Gang of Buddhists.
Bodhisattva bhaktis.
We're being overwhelmed by them this time.
It might be a gang war of Buddhists of who's holier than thou.
Anyhow, the topic, what we're going to talk about, and to me it's a big antidote to this stuck on, self, prepossessed self, shall we say. Generosity. That's what we're talking about. And I think that there's a way to develop that act and have it certainly in consciousness, and it really helps identify your motivations so clearly, so instantly, even on the smallest level, right? Have you thought it's
a very clear mirror of what's going on internally and where you're holding back, or what you expect in return, or the strings attached and expectations and so on. Pure generosity gives without expectation of return. That's what it says in all the world's religions, unconditional love. And Buddhism is called dana paramita. In Christianity, caritas, self-giving, not investing, hoping you'll get a better life in the afterlife, or in Buddhism and Hinduism, so not just giving, hoping you'll get a better rebirth later, not giving with strings attached to get your name on the building or the wing of the hospital you're donating to. But what it comes down to is more like, if you have kids or you mentor young people, there's a part of us that is pure and hopes that they will succeed, or whatever you call it, have an even better life than us. And that's pure generosity. And how you live up to that and not feel it's a zero-sum game, how you could feel like the more you give, the more we all get.
Yeah. And
do your duty and don't be over-invested in the
result,
in the return, as it says in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. Yeah.
Krishna says to Arjuna, you think you're doing this? No, I'm doing it all. And he gives him a vision of the whole cosmos being born and dying. And Arjuna doesn't want to go into the battle with his relatives, and which is just a metaphor for the interior battlefield. And this is not just in Asia. Dostoevsky called the life, as spiritual life, the interior battlefield. And he understood that, the great writer. And this is something the thinkers and seekers, truth seekers have known for millennia.
And this is a fight well worth having. I like this whole.
It's the only fight worth having when we want to be more peaceful.
Yeah. So I love the imagery, though. We're going to get out there on this battlefield, and we're going to get after, because it's so true.
It takes effort, and it takes audacity and courage and many other things that we don't always associate with nonviolence, but we should. We could. Gandhi was very audacious and bold, and he did time in prison, as did other saints. Jesus among them.
Yeah.
When they interrogated him, he didn't answer. He said, "You say so." And he took the result of that, and he
ultimate generosity
to God's will. Yeah.
Ultimate.
It's caritas, is giving up yourself. Yeah. Not just dying, but even, there were worse things than dying.
So, get to the little guy, us little guys on a day-to-day.
Yeah, us little guys.
So we look out and we see that there may be some need, or there's something simple like picking up something they draw, whatever it might be.
Right. Or picking up litter.
And as soon as you do that, you get the intention to do it. It springs pretty spontaneously if it's pure. And as soon as you do that, you are no longer thinking of me. Me is gone. And so my little premise here is that, which I'm going to bring up at the retreat, is generosity, aside from all these other incredible aspects of it, is it's like a fulcrum to just move out of that.
From me to we.
Yeah, me to we. Yeah, there you go. So,
there's no I in we.
Yeah. No I in we. That's good.
So as a Buddhist scholar, I just want to point out what many people would know, but of the 6 or the 10 transcendental virtues of the bodhisattva that leads to full enlightenment, the first one is not meditation. It's not ethics and morality. It's generosity.
Really?
Dana Paramita is the first of the 10 or 6 paramitas, Panacea virtues of the bodhisattva. And that means giving without expecting in return. And that's really a challenge. Just like it's hard to parent without expecting them to bring back the results that we want, as if we know. And it's not Lord Krishna or the higher power that's, quote, directing things. Of course, in the absolute level, everything is unfolding and is just as it needs to be. And all these conditions help shape us to fit into the puzzle. Sometimes God squeezes us. That's all, as Father Thomas Keating said recently.
I love that. You told me that the other day.
And that's an example of the closeness.
That's so
But
great.
also the painful, the birth pains of giving birth to Mui.
Yeah.
Not just me and I, which is painful enough.
Yeah, we're gonna owe a royalty there to Dr. Dan. I'll have to tell him about that. Oh, so one other thing, I was on the same subject. I was talking to my friend David Silver the other day, and one of our mind-rolling fans who we love, Glenn, sent this thing. Robert Thurman and Sharon were doing something somewhere, I think with Mark Epstein. And so David and I went through. So it was about dependent origination. So there's probably maybe one of the most known terms of Tibetan Buddhism, and at the same time completely misunderstood, and very few teachers, in my mind, can really get to the core of that and really give enough of it so that you can actually go, oh wait a minute here in my awareness day to day. So, I want you, please go for it, and then I'll share.
I can't.
You can't.
I've never given a Dharma talk on Praticca Samutpada, interdependent origination. but Fred von Orman of Switzerland does. And
Who is?
There are 12 links of interdependent. He's a Vipassana teacher and Tibetan Buddhist, but this 12 interdependent links or dependent origination, which just means that nothing happens in isolation, that it's all connected. And it's not just one cause brings one effect. There's, a whole chain it takes.
But let me ask something.
He understands this and he teaches this, Fred, the 12 links. Well, but I always joke and say he's the only one that can understand this because he's Swiss. His father was probably a clockmaker. So he understands the 12 links. Right. Us Americans, if it's more than 3, we can't do it.
Okay, so it's nothing about, listen to this. So nothing about that intrinsically we are Buddha mind. We are true nature. And that's the only way that we develop these patterns and create the karma is by reacting to all of what comes in.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
I'm still good
so
there.
In a way, karma means conditioning or reactivity, not just cause and effect. So in the 12 links, perhaps the most important lesson that I've understood and used from it is that there's some point between, 4, 5, and 6 o'clock on the 12, the circle, where it's contact, like a stimulation, sensation, and then feeling of liking or disliking. If right there you have the mindful awareness to not react habitually with a knee-jerk reaction from contact to sensation to feeling, somewhere between sensation and the reaction of liking and disliking, which leads to attraction, attachment, or aversion based on the illusion of ignorance or separateness, that's where you can break the chain.
Beautiful.
That's where you find freedom right there in the moment, not in the next life, not after you do it 10,000 hours. It might take you some time to get used to this, but that's where freedom is found.
Wild understatement there. Okay, well, that's it.
Well, I'm saying people, secular social scientists say you can master any art or craft in 10,000 hours. And they test meditators who have meditated 10,000 hours with the neuroscience, the fMRIs and all. But it doesn't take that long if you can get a few of these pith instructions or tips and pointers. And that's one that I finally gleaned from trying to study this interdependent origination. The Dalai Lama provoked this by I asked him why his school emphasized Śūnyatā, the shining void, the vast emptiness, so much. It sounds so negative, but it's the via negativa of Meister Eckhart. It's really the fullness, but the womb of emptiness. But why they teach Śūnyatā so much? And he said, the best way to understand this great Śūnyatā is to understand the interdependent origination of things.
Wow.
Like how many causes it took for us to get together. Otherwise it wouldn't happen.
Right. Or
the table or whatever in front of you has so many causes and pieces. So that's the meaning of no separate individual permanent self. In other words, what about me is really what about us and the whole thing.
Right.
What does it mean to me? Like my grandmother would say when there was some news, how is this going to affect the Jews? No. Like a Holocaust survivor. If the Dodgers won the pennant, she would say, how is this going to affect the Jews or the people in the Bronx? I don't know, kick us out of Brooklyn? Because she was a Holocaust survivor. She had PTSD and nobody called it that. So when we understand it's really about us, not just how it affects me, then it's Thich Nhat Hanh brilliantly called it the Sangha of all beings, not just the Sangha or the satsang of the Buddhists or the believers or the members of all beings, not just the human beings. So the whole, and we get shaped by these conditions to fit into this puzzle. Like that's the great perfection teaching of Dzogchen. We're all part of it, or of non-dual Vedanta.
So, Robert, in this thing, one thing I picked up on out of this thing around, and that was beautiful, dependent origination. I'm glad I was in the ballpark. That makes me feel like, okay. And he said,
it's not important for you to feel okay. That's what you were just saying. It's important for all to be okay. How can I feel okay when, those forest fires have people wearing gas masks in Berkeley and all over California. And in Paradise, there's still hundreds of people missing. And now there's floods. But anyway, I'm just exaggerating and bantering, poking my old friend Raghu Vidyadas.
No, you.
Mitch Marcus from Montreal.
Okay.
3 M's.
This is where we know each other too long. So what he said is so the cause of suffering. What's the cause of this and that? It's ignorance, but that means that it's unreal because I think it's bad because I don't understand its true nature. This is Robert. I misknow it, and also ignorance. This is the greatest line for me. Doesn't just mean I don't know something, right? It means I'm wrongly knowing something.
Yeah,
and
misknowing.
And you start to think of the enormous amount of misknowing that is going on. And talk about delusion and the movie of me that no wonder you misknowing.
No wonder why we have to keep going to the movies again and again until we learn the lesson, or we get left back and we have to repeat the year in school, or we have to get reborn if we don't get it this time. That's more like Eastern thinking.
Yeah.
So misknowing. But the example often given is like if you're in the dark and you see something on the ground that looks like a snake, you jump. But then when on further examination, you find out it's just a twig, a branch, or a rope. So the snake was unreal, but was the fear real? So you have to say, so the fear is real enough. So if people are suffering, if your children are having a nightmare, you try to wake them up. If you can't wake them up, you know they're going to wake up in the morning, and you don't spend the whole night. You don't spend the whole night fretting.
Right.
So there's a notion of the ongoing evolution of, quote, consciousness or being, if you like. So in one way, everything changes, and in the other way, the more it changes, the more it stays the same, as the French say. And in Buddhism, that would be the absolute reality, or truth never changes, but the relative, there's nothing that doesn't change in the relative.
Yeah, nothing that doesn't change, which is
and the relative.
Another reason for the movie of the me.
Right.
Hold on, man. We can't change. Hold on. No.
Yeah, and the more we do the same thing, we dig our ruts deeper, just like wheels spinning on ice or mud. Doesn't help you get out.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So you have to change exponentially and make a leap. Sometimes a leap of faith, or some other leap of strength, or learn how to jump or leap better, or get a handhold and get helped out or something.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question for you. Why do I love Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche so much?
Because he's so beautiful. He has, it says right there, because he is the heart treasure of the enlightened ones. That's the name of the book.
Yeah.
Just like I love Nim Karoli Baba so much, because he treated everybody like God, the old people that had been there 50 years with parents, with his disciples, and the new ones like us that wandered in, hippies looking for some sweets or a bed, or we didn't know what we were looking for. We were 20 years old, at least I was. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, the Dalai Lama says, and you can see this on film in his in the movie about Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, my teacher, one of my main Dzogchen teacher. Dalai Lama says that Khyentse Rinpoche was his guru, and he said that he was the Padmasambhava Guru Rinpoche, the founder of Tantric Buddhism in Tibet, incarnate. So I don't know. Wow. That's a little outer, but that's why. That's not just he was a good guy, or he was learned, or he was nonviolent, or he was a nice grandfatherly master. But he could really awaken people, and he dedicated every moment to that and to helping people in an ultimate way, not just teaching information, but pointing out the way to liberation and really nirvanic peace and fulfillment.
But he seemed like a great combination. I saw the film, so I get some little feel, and it's all mindful of what we know, in terms of the big.
Of course, because it's universal.
Yeah. But he seemed to be a great combination of absolute no bullshit on any level and joy, humor. Like he looked like fun. He was having fun.
He was fun.
He was fun.
Well, because he was a jolly Lama.
Yeah.
He had found peace himself, and he saw everybody as like grandchildren. Even when he wasn't that old. There's a story from Tibet where somebody, the Dalai Lama or somebody asked the other great Lama, are there any great Lamas over there in Eastern Tibet, which, in the old days was so far. You can only get there by walking or by horse, and there were no maps and no telephones. And somebody said, there's a tall one that's pretty good living in a cave. This is like the way the Dalai Lama and his buddies, the other high lamas talked, There's a tall one living in a cave. Pretty good.
Pretty
He was
good.
about 30 or 40 years old then. He was already pretty good.
Oh my.
So but he did live in a cave on and off, and for 22 years. And that's not the only thing he did. He was very learned. He had a wife, he had children, he has grandchildren. His grandson runs and is the abbot of the monastery in Nepal that was rebuilt from the one destroyed in Tibet. And he has some proteges like Venerable Lama Matthew Ricard, who's a philanthropist and a social activist all over the world, as well as a monk and a scholar, and trying to preserve this endangered culture.
Yeah. So I want to.
That's why we love him so much, and he welcomed everybody. And he was a nice guy. I mean, that sounds so cheap. A big deal. There's a lot of nice guys. He was a nice guy cubed.
Yeah.
He
A
was
nice
almost
guy with
he seemed egoless. He filled up the whole room with that energy, but it wasn't really about him at all, ever.
Yeah, right. We know that. All right, so everybody out there, you want to get an idea of him. This is from this book. But it is in this degenerate age that we have reached the peak of illusion. People have long forgotten the purity of the golden age. They disregard, here's what we're doing, folks, disregard their future lives and are preoccupied only by immediate gratification, unreliable and capricious. They bury the Dharma under a great heap of harmful and negative actions. The world and beings change direction every moment like stalks of wheat swaying to and fro in the wind, and what was true this morning is untrue by this evening. Ultimately, rain, snow, hail, heat, and cold upset the natural course of the seasons. Seeing all this, we must understand that there is no point in being excessively glad when something good happens to us, as it may well turn into the opposite at any time. And we must understand there is no point in being too depressed by bad circumstances, as our difficulties are minute compared to those endured by countless beings in the lower realms. Wow. Okay?
Wow. Well, there was a lot in there to unpack and to reread and to think about.
I know. Every paragraph of this book is like that.
So that's The Heart Treasure of the Enlightened Ones. That's a great book. I want to say, you're an old radio guy and you love books and I love books. But for maybe you middle generations, you can get a DVD. I know this is also anachronistic. It's a film called Brilliant Moon about Khyentse Rinpoche.
Fantastic.
You can probably download it from those places where you get things on the web. Brilliant Moon about Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche by Nathan Ten Choling, and it's an authentic life of the guru with a little bit of teaching, some inspiration, a lot about Himalayan Buddhism and Tibetan refugees, and it's a beautiful story about his gurus. His three gurus, who he considered or had a vision of them merging into one and coming into his heart. So in the visual media, you can do that. And they did that with sort of animation. Yeah. So it's like a little guided visualization with animation. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a really
Brilliant
beautiful
Moon,
movie.
Which is his name, Brilliant Moon.
Yeah.
Rabsel Dawa, that's his personal name. Wow. And since we're on this kind of subject of movies, so one of his disciples is called Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, Jamyang Khyentse, and he made the movie The Cup. about little monks playing soccer in his monastery that won an award like best first film at Cannes Film Festival or something. So these, old Tibetan masters have disciples who are actually functioning and living and bringing things into the mainstream, education and spiritual teachings and charitable projects, translating all the world scriptures and things like that.
And by the way,
cleaning up the Himalayan environment, etc.
We'll put the links up on the Mindrolling page on the Be Here Now Network with this edition, and people, you'll be able to just get over there, including the Heart Treasures, the Enlightened One, which is Dilgo Khyentse. But so aside from...
But he's not the only one, Everybody seems to have an only way, but there are many only ways.
What do you mean only ways? He's got a great way. That's all. That's why I love him.
So I'll say, he's my teacher, so it's the best.
Yeah.
But it's the best for me.
Nah, you say it's the best for everybody.
Karmapa's disciples say he's the best and the greatest.
He's the best and the greatest too.
Lama? Yeah, or Maharaji Nimkaroli Baba, he is the best and the greatest. He's the only one. Sabek.
Well, he's not. He's the only. He's saying there is only one. There's only.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we're on the same page.
That's the only way.
But it's like delighting. It's like delighting, and it's like going and there's Haagen-Dazs. There's Ben and Jerry's. It's
there's many flavors.
Yeah,
they're all sweet.
But here's something. Okay, again
Isn't there a song about that in your Bhakti tradition of Hanuman? Something like these names are sweet like ladus.
Yeah.
The names on my tongue, the names of God or the names of the gurus are sweeter than ladus, the sweetest of us Indian edible sweets.
So furthering this, developing our interior self. So it's all right. So we've talked about generosity. We've talked about honesty. We talked about intention. These are the things that once we turn in that direction, that will keep the momentum, shall we say, and
deepening our soul and our search, and sort of elevate our spirit.
Yeah. So
and connect us with others.
Here is him talking again. He's so no bullshit thing, and you go, holy shit! In past lives and in this life until now, we have brought harm to others countless times, okay, by lying to them, cheating them, stealing from them, bringing ruin upon them, assaulting them, killing them, and all other kinds of wrongdoing. This accumulated negativity is what has kept us trapped in samsara illusion, and it is now the chief hindrance to our progress on the path. It sustains the two kinds of obscuration, okay, and that's a great, a really great word to really understand in terms of this development of our interior self, which fall between us and the experience of the Buddha nature. Obscuration by emotions and obscurations of what can be known. I think let's pull that apart a little bit.
Right, that's what I was thinking. So the two obscurations are, the first one are the kleshas, or the conflicting emotions, the kleshas, the poisons. So the notion is these are not just intrinsic defilements or original sin. The notion here in Vajrayana non-dual Buddhism is original goodness. And these bad karmic acts kind of obscure. Like if you get intoxicated, or you drive through, landslide, your windshield gets obscured. It doesn't mean the inside is ruined. So you can't see. So the first of the two is the kleshas, it's called in the original Buddhist language, the negative emotions or defilements or negativities. And ignorance is one of the emotions. So we're not really talking about feelings. Emotions is not the right word, but obscurations or defilements is probably better. Or inner conflicts. And the second one is obscurations to seeing clearly, or to wisdom eye. What did the translation you read said? Obscurations to higher knowledge, I think. So that's about truth and insight and realization and wisdom. And those are the two things that in Buddhism we try to develop and cultivate. Purifying the obscurations that cloud our vision and seeing things as they are, not as they ain't.
Okay, let's talk about what are we going to do here? And, we want to share. I mean, you and I, you have spent a lot of time, and we can talk about meditation. You've done tremendous practice in that area, and I some, and but practice. I mean, because we keep talking about, okay, so here we're dealing with obscurations of different sorts, kleshas, and so we have a certain momentum that we've developed through everything we've talked about so far, and now we're at the point where these obscurations, not seeing clearly, and being at the whim of habitual patterns and conflicts and all of that.
Habitual reaction patterns.
Where's the stop? And
between contact and sensation and feeling, reaction, judgment, like liking and disliking, and bringing the wedge of mindful present awareness to that point, so we don't just react with knee-jerk habitual reactions and get the same results, like retaliating or road rage because somebody cut us off, and we take a breath or count to 10, or feel our body or our breath in our abdomen, so that we bring the attention, we collect ourselves rather than focusing on the object, the driver that cut us off. Because in fact, we don't really know what they're doing. All we see is that their car got in front of our car. We don't know if they have a woman trying to give birth in the back seat or a bleeding child in the car that they're rushing to the emergency room. We don't really know.
Yeah.
So you take a breath, and road rage doesn't do you any good anyway. So you feel the anger, but then you look into other ways to process it, not just retaliating in kind. So you feel in your body, you integrate it healthily, and maybe you put it into maybe you shout in the car, maybe you sing, some kind of funny song, or you curse, or you shout, yippee-ki-yay, mofo, like in, the Bruce Willis movie, and you get the energy out, because anger is just an energy. It doesn't have to devolve into violence and action.
There was that, who told me this? Duncan, right? Trussell told me, no, I'm sorry, David Silver told me, my other podcast buddy, somebody got into a road rage thing, and actually a woman, and shot and killed the other person. And then after she woke up from whatever delirium she went into to do some things like that, she was, extremely beyond consolable. And then, so we started talking about, okay, well, that's you created.
That's like temporary insanity.
Yeah.
That's what conflicting emotions do.
But you created something. And then I said, well, let's go way back. We're not killing people, but we're getting cut off. And let's go way back. And we're not even doing what you just said. What's going on?
Yeah.
We're not screaming epithets, but inside ourselves, we're going.
No, inside we are.
Inside we are. And
it's like
that's karma.
That's the hot hells of screaming and fire and blades. But inside we go to the cold hells. We freeze up.
Yeah.
We get hard.
Yeah.
We harden up, or the points of the blades are turned inward.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
it's equally harmful.
Yeah. That's a point, and you.
But it's not illegal. Because you didn't do harmful action to others, but you make yourself sick. We say it gives you ulcers, but now we would say it gives you tension or stress or high blood pressure or heart attacks.
But this is good to be aware of.
Makes you uptight. Yeah.
It's good to be aware of. This is part of that development in my mind. You don't discount the shit that you are absolutely creating through thoughts. And seeing them for what they are, yes. Right. So
it's a shitstorm, but shit can be also used for manure or fertilizer, as Chogyam Trungpa pointed out. So it depends what you do with it. You can compost it, or you can, dump it on the next person that you see, or your habitual scapegoat, your wife, your kid, your employee, or on yourself. If you have a harsh inner tyrant, you're always blaming yourself more than you need to.
Yeah. Say the least.
As if you're in charge of the world.
The movie of me. You're producing,
the movie of
directing,
me,
yeah.
not Krishna, Lord Krishna's infinite cornucopia of all births and deaths coming out of his mouth.
Yeah.
But the movie of me that I'm directing, producing, and
Starring
should
in.
get an Oscar for
Yeah.
because I'm so brilliant.
Each of us are incredible. So,
Right, each of us.
last thing from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, which is, one would say, okay, here is the bottom line cause of the movie of me and everything we've been talking about. It is of crucial importance, he says, to understand that holding on to the idea of there being a quote-unquote I, a truly existing self, is the fundamental cause of our wandering in the three realms of existence. Once this mistaken belief in an ego has taken root, we start clinging to my body, my mind, my name, my possessions, my family, and so forth. It is these notions that then make us crave pleasure and abhor pain. The result is an unceasing succession of alternating attraction and repulsion. And from these underlying urges arise the conflicting emotions that disturb our minds without respite. See,
Yes,
Dilgo
it is, of
Khyentse,
course.
he could have ended that disturb our minds, period. But
Yeah.
there's that without respite that
Right,
just
his
kills
compassion.
you.
Yeah,
It
it's just
kills
like, give it up. Haven't you had enough already of that
right.
heroin?
Oh, so great.
Without respite.
Without
My
respite.
guru, Nyosho Kempo, sang a short spontaneous song about this, about beaten helplessly again and again by the surging and crashing waves of the conflicting emotions. Isn't it time to give it up or get out of the water or something?
Yeah. And the truth is, until you really start suffering, you ain't going to do it.
Sometimes you have to bottom out, or if you're lucky, get a little help from a friend, Kalyana Mitra, Buddha called a spiritual friend, which isn't a guru or a boss or an authority figure. Just, somebody gives you a few tips like, oh, maybe you could try being gluten-free and you wouldn't have stomach problems your whole life. It's not for everybody, but that's a good tip we never heard before, recently. Or, oh, have you ever tried meditating instead of just drugging yourself? Try TM, try mindfulness, try yoga, try the contemplative arts.
But now we are talking about this, and we haven't mentioned it. I mean, we talked about effort, and right effort, of course, is extraordinarily important, because killing yourself every day to sit for 3 minutes ain't going to work. Their motivations need to come from
balanced effort and appropriate effort.
But it seems to me, though, that on any level, the importance of meditation practice, and you must have thought this because you did it. You did 3, 2, 3. Did you do 2, 3 or more? 3 year?
3, 2.5.
2.5. Yeah. So you must have thought it was important, right?
So we got involved with that.
What's that?
Because our guru, resident guru, Dilgo Rinpoche, died at an ancient advanced age. So we got involved with that. The prayers and rituals, being lamas and all around that. But yes, but I'm still doing meditation. I think it's important.
Why did you sit for the first time? Okay, you made a decision. It's a big decision because you're in retreat for 3 years.
Right, 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. It's a long time. It's like 1,000 days.
What prompted you to make that decision?
Well, externally, my root guru, my main Tibetan first master, Kala Rinpoche, was always recommended that.
It's just crazy every time you say it's one after the other of the greatest lamas.
Well, I lived with him in Darjeeling in the early first half of 70s, and he started the first 3-year retreats for Westerners. And he had been in a cave and done that kind of retreat, and he taught the Dalai Lama Mahamudra and yoga. So he was a very high-powered, energetic meditation master, even though he was skin and bones from being a Tibetan refugee and TB and coming down from the mountains into the jungle plains of India. But he recommended that, and he wanted us to do it, to get the full transmission and training, and to import all the initiations, and have that we could have our own experience, not just beliefs. And then on the more inner side, I started to find out myself what I like to do, or I don't know if it was good at is the right word, but I was never that much really for like foreign languages. So I didn't really spend a lot of time translating and studying Sanskrit, Tibetan, and Hindi like some of our friends did, or Bob Thurman you mentioned. I wasn't that good at philosophy and and things like that. I liked meditation and yoga and devotion and satsang and good deeds, social activism. I was teaching English to lamas and living in refugee camps, and I thought that was important. And so then it seemed like that was the path. And so I started to have a few visions or experiences over several years, and went to many 10-day Vipassana retreats and 1-month retreat and solo retreat. And so then the next thing was the 3-year retreat. So when I got a chance to do that in 1980, then I went and did it. And then it was great. I mean, it wasn't always easy, but it was great. And all the great Lamas came in there and taught us, as we were kind of the guinea pig generation. And the first Westerners doing that. And then when it was over, we all said, when's Khyentse Rinpoche coming? When's let's do another one. And so we built another retreat center and gave the really pucka, the well broken in retreat center to a new wave of Dharma students that wanted to do it. And we did it in a more funky farmhouse that we built a wall around with a smaller group. There's 13 of us, the second 3-year retreat. And I just didn't think there was anything else to do. I mean, of course, I was horny, and also I wanted to visit my parents, and I needed to like sell some stuff and get some money. But I didn't want to go to work or get married or, go back to India and be sick all the time and trying to stay somewhere for 3 months without the visa police chasing me. Yeah, right. So I did another 3-year retreat with my retreat buddies. Who now form the Padmakara Translation Committee that translates a lot of these great Tibetan texts in Dordogne, France. And then we started a third one, and then the new students came, and then I was invited to teach. And in fact, Fred von Ullman, the Vipassana teacher in Switzerland, who I mentioned, came to Dordogne and asked Khyentse Rinpoche if I could come and teach his group in Switzerland. That's how maybe it was 1988. And he and Charles Genoux brought me to Switzerland to teach a Dzogchen retreat to the Vipassana teachers and Vipassana students. And that's how I started teaching with Khyentse Rinpoche's blessing. And then I brought Nyoshi Khenpo there. And then, it just went on from there. But I still make meditation my main practice. I do a little yoga. I do more chanting and praying and write poetry and spiritual songs and things like that. A little devotional music. But more than philosophy or translating or scholarship, meditation every morning, and also outside every day.
Foundation, then meditation, which is what when we talk about, there's no way, there has to be practice involved, because you've got to jigger all those neurons, right? And that's what neuroscience says, and it's all possible, but it's definitive and regular practice without thinking about results or anything whatsoever.
Experiential practice, not just intellectual, conceptual practice. Like, we're all a little overeducated and under self-understanding. So we had philosophy and all that and psychology. We didn't have wisdom and experiential so much in our so-called, quote, higher education. So this is a more higher, I think, and deeper education, and develops wisdom for life, not just information era understanding. So
back to developing our interior selves.
The inner self.
That's the building block. And
and that's something we do together, but we can also do alone, and we do alone together, and sometimes in groups, sometimes alone. I coined the term co-meditation because I feel like I'm co-meditating whenever I see water it kind of does it for me, or the sound of waves or waterfalls, or whenever I see the sky, just kind of a little dissolving and releasing into that. And you talked about generosity, letting a profound, important kind of generosity is letting go of attachment. So releasing your ego preoccupations is a very good donation to the enlightenment of the world.
Yeah.
Non-attachment may be the greatest form of giving.
Yeah, that's great.
Giving up yourself. But that doesn't mean being a doormat or a vegetable. Yeah. There's the middle way.
Yeah. All right. How about we're kind of at the end, but I wouldn't mind because you started going and the cloud and the sky, and I started to get a little.
I was about co-meditating with
co-meditating with nature. Can we have a little, several minutes on that to end our time together?
I'm just thinking about how yes. So we're co-meditating together, you and me and everybody here together, and we're breathing together, and we're in satsang, true fellowship, and sangha, true connection, and connected by the elements of the earth that's in our body, that is our bodies, makes our bodies dust to dust, and the water element that's the oceans and that's in our blood and fluids and so on, fire and the heat in our body, and all the elements, natural elements, and really awareness or presence is the ultimate, all-suffusing, divine activating element. So let's just co-meditate in that, just breathing, relaxing together, and smiling. If this was Instagram, or handheld, I'd say push the like button or tap twice and like this and heart this. Breathe, relax, center, and smile. Nothing else needed to do, to understand, to remember, or to achieve. And enjoy the natural co-meditation, interbeing with things just as they are. Intermeditating with reality, interbeing with things just as they are, all together now, in harmony and flow. Open mind, open heart, open and aware, luminous. Buddha in you, the letting go means letting things come and go, letting be, natural flow, imaho, wondrous, eureka, yes. Enjoy the joy of natural co-meditation, one with everything, one with one and all. Awakening together. Now, completing our co-meditation together by wishing that all beings who are just like us and want and need same as we do, may all be awakened, liberated, healed, happy, and free. May there be peace in this world, an end to violence, war, poverty, injustice, and oppression. And may we all together fulfill this glorious spiritual journey all the way home. Thankfulness and surrender is the way home. That is love. Oma Chigmala Soadeb, Ama Chigmala Soadeb, Oma Chigmala Soadeb, Kapam Yeshinki La. And I bow to the Buddha, the light, the divine in you, in your seat. Don't overlook her.
Wonderful. Wonderful and spacious. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
You're welcome.
Lama.
Thank you.
So great.
Thank you for doing this and for being such a friend for so many years, Raghu.
Yeah, so great. We are so fortunate. Everybody, Lama has a podcast on Be Here Now Network. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com and /Śūnyatā, I guess, or the name of the podcast.
It's called Awakening Now.
Or Awakening Now.
Now podcast.
Well, just go there. You'll see him. There's a picture of him there. I have a picture of, we met when Maharaji left in 1973, because we weren't with him at the same time. You came later than I. I left early or whatever. And there we were. We had a group photo at Khyentse, and that's where we met.
I remember.
Wow.
Just a few years ago.
Yeah.
45.
All right, that's giving up too much.
It goes fast.
Yeah.
Time goes fast in a dream.
Okay, everybody, you can get all of the notes about what we've been talking about and links and all that stuff at BeHereNowNetwork.com/mindrolling, and we shall see you next week. Ram Ram.
Ram, keep rolling.